Today's roundtable, joining us Democratic media strategist Franco Ripple and former congressional chief of staff Glen Downs. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us.
Great to be here.
Pleasure.
All right, Glenn, we talk about these endorsements. Bob Dole coming out for Marco Rubio today, Tom Ridge breaking for John Kasich. But this title of the establishment's candidate is a crown that's been pretty heavy to hang on the heads of folks like Jeb Bush. If you were advising Marco Rubio, would you be leery of that crown, the establishment's pick?
Well, I think he wants to not have the title, but I do think he wants the benefits of being the establishment's pick. As you just sat up there, obviously this is about a group of people who are interested in taking resources, whether they're financial resources, the media industrial complex resources, or the resources from the RNC as it controls the rules process and the like, to get behind a single establishment candidate. They may not be crazy about Rubio in this respect or that respect, but boy, they don't like Trump, and they really don't like Ted Cruz.
Franco, let me ask you, who concerns Democrats the most, seeing Ted Cruz as the establishment candidate or Marco Rubio?
Well, boy, you know, my sense is Marco Rubio. Ted Cruz is somebody that is trying very hard to get it down to be a two-man race, but he be one of the two men, and that he would then be much more pleasing to the establishment, to the Wall Street donor class, than Donald Trump in many ways. Obviously, Ted Cruz's wife is a managing director at Goldman Sachs, and so they would be very comfortable with Wall Street. I think Wall Street would be very comfortable with Cruz, but stylistically, right now, he's not their cup of tea.
Well, Franco, give us an idea of what you think that Hillary Clinton is doing right now, because she seems to be, you know, pretty much a key now, a lock for the Democratic nomination after Nevada over the weekend. But give us an idea of what you think they're doing now in terms of trying to build some sort of defense against Marco Rubio if he's going to be the guy.
Well, certainly, yes. The Clinton campaign is in a very strong position going forward with with a great mathematical place to be in terms of the number of delegates that they've got going forward to South Carolina. But I think they're going to prepare differently for all of the candidates. I don't think it's just, look, Marco Rubio hasn't won a state yet, okay? The best he's done has been second place. So I think now is the time for the so-called Marco-mentum to happen, if it's going to happen. This is his time. He needs to seize the mantle of, as Glenn said, not necessarily the establishment choice, because we're seeing that's poison in the GOP this year, but as someone who's going to collect all the trappings. And by the way, it's not just money and donors, it's also staff. Great staff can make the difference on a winning campaign or not. And the Bush campaign had some very top-rate operatives. I've seen them at work here in Florida. They're going to go to the Rubio campaign almost entirely. Hat tip to Politico's Mark Caputo for being the one to break that over the weekend resume started flowing from the Bush campaign to Rubio. So this is going to be his time, but the Clinton campaign, I think, is going to prepare for a number of outcomes, one including being, you know, the Donald as the nominee, which would be pandemonium for America, you know, so we'll see what happens.
Glenn, let me ask you, who do you think benefits the most now that Jeb Bush is out of it? I know Kasich has won some supporters, and so has Rubio, but who do you think benefits the most with him out of the picture?
Well, thank you for mentioning John Kasich. There is, amongst many of my friends in Washington and around the country who have been in the political process for a long time, people think that John Kasich is being undervalued here, and with the Ohio primary coming up and some of these winner-take-all primaries coming up, Kasich is not at all out of the picture. People are very anxious to have this field narrowed down to just one person, and therefore they want Kasich to sort of step aside. You even saw one suggestion today that Marco Rubio should go ahead right now and offer John Kasich the vice president to run his running mate slot as a device to get this rule winnowed down. But I'm not at all certain that all the Jeb Bush voters, such as they are at this point, are going to just automatically flock to one of these establishment candidates. There really weren't that many Jeb Bush voters to begin with. Really what it comes down to is the donor class.
You make a great point, Glenn, and so do you, Franco, that, you know, Marco Rubio, it's not really clear where he can win one of these primary contests. John Kasich certainly has an advantage in Ohio, where he's the sitting governor. He's also trying to play hard in Michigan, too. But when you look at the poll numbers for Marco Rubio in some of these other states, there's not a clear-cut victory laid out for him, even in a state like Florida, where he's behind Donald Trump in a lot of the polling right now. Franco?
That's true, but there's also not a lot of states going forward for Kasich to necessarily win either. I think that,
but at least there's Ohio for him, where if he doesn't win it, it'll be a surprise for a lot of people. If Rubio doesn't win Florida, he's got Donald Trump that can.
Right.
It's also Donald Trump's home state in a sort of a way.
True. In sort of a way, yes, just like it was Huckabee's and Carson's and everybody else's. People love Florida. What can we say? That being said, look, Trump could very well win this state here of Florida, so it's not out of the realm of possibility that Kasich loses Ohio, although I do think he'll carry it. The point is, other than states like New Hampshire, where there is a fairly establishment strain, I don't think that there's a lot of states where he's going to do well. So much like Reagan did in 1976 to offer one of his chief opponents the VP slot, should he get it. And of course,
well, everything's changing now. We'll take a look at the Jeb Bush's failed campaign when we come back. The fall of the House of Bush, the headline everybody wrote Saturday night. Franco and Glenn coming back with us.
Welcome back to Newsmax Now. After months of seeming to be running in place and spending millions of dollars in early voting states with little to show for it, Jeb Bush finally had to call it quits.
I'm proud of the campaign that we've run to unify our country and to advocate conservative solutions that would give more Americans the opportunity to rise up and reach their God-given potential. But the people of Iowa and New Hampshire and South Carolina have spoken, and I really respect their decision. So tonight, I am suspending my campaign. No. Yeah.
The former Florida governor had many moments that went viral, though those moments likely didn't instill confidence into any voters who might be thinking about another President Bush.
To get back in the business of creating a more peaceful world. Please clap.
I said, if you could go back in time and kill baby Hitler, would you? I need to know.
And
hell yeah, I would. So 40 years ago, I smoked marijuana, and I admit it. I'm sure that other people might have done it and may not want to say it in front of 25 million people. My mom's not happy that I just did.
is to fix that mess as fast as I can. That's it. Thank you. They're kicking me out the door.
Memories. Better times ahead, I hope, for Governor Bush. Let's welcome back our panel, Democratic media strategist Franco Ripple, also with us, former congressional chief of staff Glen Downs. All right, Franco, you have a lot of experience with the Bush people. Is this a bad candidate, a bad organization, just not the right time? If you had to diagnose this, what was the problem, the biggest problem?
It's painful to diagnose this because, look, even though I'm a Democrat, you know, the Bush family are lovely people. They're great leaders of our country, and it's sad to see this happen to Jeb Bush and to the Bush family. That being said, I think it was a campaign that was definitely a little bit lackluster. You know, some of that comes from the candidate. Donald Trump's low energy thing, man, it really stuck in a way that I think very few people expected it to. Very few things that another candidate says about one other candidate can really torpedo someone else's candidacy. It's very rare that that happens, but it played a role. And then I think also it was just absolutely an anti-establishment year, and like it or not, Jeb Bush and the Bush family represent the establishment. Only a few other political families in history, like the Adamses and Kennedys and Roosevelts, have had multiple people be president from their family, and the Bushes certainly fall into that. So wrong time, but, you know, maybe better luck next time.
Wrong time, yeah. You know, I had a lot of people say it felt like his heart just wasn't into it. You know, being in Florida, that we remember him as a governor. He didn't seem like the same person. But then I've also heard people argue that he just was never very good at campaigning. Glenn, what do you think? Do you think it's timing?
Well, listen to it to a certain extent. Obviously, it's timing because the Bush name and the Bush family has come to represent to many, many people, including the Republican-based voters, the past. And people are not satisfied with where we are, and therefore they're obviously not satisfied how we got here. So people want to know what you're going to do going forward, and that's something that Jeb Bush was never able to really command. And somebody like Donald Trump has been able to, at least at least the people that want to stick a big middle finger up at the political establishment know, hey, somebody like Trump or Cruz or Dr. Ben Carson or whoever it is, they think it's got to be better than what we've had in the past. And Jeb Bush rightly or wrongly, represented more of the same.
He also didn't have like a clear message. You know what I mean? It was like, Jeb can fix it.
It was Jeb with the exclamation point.
Yeah, I mean,
well, yeah, there did seem to be an element of sort of noblesse oblige, and it's Jeb's turn. Right. And the idea that Jeb was going to sort of hold the presidency open until George P. Bush could reach constitutional age, and the Bush dynasty would go on and on and on. And interestingly, a lot of the people that I know in Washington it's astonishing the number of people who had connections who are in the donor class, the lobbyist class, congressional staff class, or populating various agencies that had ties to the Bushes. And they genuinely, I know people that genuinely love them and genuinely care for them, and they can't imagine that a lot of people outside that bubble don't have that same feeling. So they've been perpetually stunned by how unwell Jeb did through the campaign. But if they bothered to sort of talk to people that were outside of their own clique, they would have known that the George Bush, for example, the younger, was not nearly as beloved by the general public and swing voters in particular as it was amongst them and their friends.
Well, Franco, do you see this anti-establishment blowback having an impact in the general election campaign?
Well, no, not necessarily. And here's the reason why, is because campaigns now are much more about who's going to turn out their side versus the other guy's side. The middle is rapidly shrinking. So I think since at least the 2008 election, it's been much more about each party turning out more of their base. And so I think in the positioning of this question, you're asking if a seemingly establishment candidate like Hillary Clinton might not fare well. Yeah. Might not fare well against, let's say, an outsider like Ted Cruz, who, as we know, is a fake outsider. He's actually an insider. That being said, no, I don't think that's an issue, because I think this is where my partisan hat goes on. At the end of the day, Democrats and Republicans have to turn out their base voters. That's who's going to win the election, and do just enough to appeal to the middle. And I think Democrats have the demographic and the issues swing in their
I just think Hillary Clinton might have a Mitt Romney problem about getting out the base.
You speak, John. Congrats. Franco, Glenn, thank you both for joining us. Still to come, a look back at one of the greatest American moments in sports history that proved miracles do come true.